Hi, I'm Dominic and welcome to the Secret Staff meeting, and this is where we have a big conversation about education. So the format of the conversation is always the same. First question, what were you like at school? Second question, what's the point of school? And then the third question, which is give me 3 things that you wish was taught in school. And we're looking for big conversations, big topics there. So today we're talking to, what's your name and where'd you come from?
Kiko Matthews, and I'm from, born in Hereford, live in London.
Born in Hereford, live in London. Okay, when did you move to London?
2013, I think. Okay,
yeah.
On and off, I moved around.
Right, and would you like to tell people a little bit about yourself? We'll focus for now on your kind of famous journey that you're on at the moment, and then we'll dig sort of into stuff before that as well. So
the end of March this year, which is 2018, I became the fastest woman to solo row the Atlantic.
Hurrah.
Hurrah. Hurrah!
Fastest woman to row the Atlantic, so single-handed?
Single-handed, unsupported, so that means no other boats around me.
And those boats are huge.
Relative to a rowing boat, yeah. I mean, not when you're in the middle of the Atlantic.
No, of course. But I was kind of surprised because I was checking them out the other day, and they're serious bits of kit, aren't they?
Yeah.
You can't. It's not like getting something on Hyde Park Lake or something.
No. You got to live and survive 40, 50-foot waves and carry your food and your equipment. So yeah, it needs to be some substantial item.
And how many days did you say it was?
49 days.
49 days. Started in Gran Canaria?
Started in Gran Canaria, yeah.
Finished?
Barbados.
Could be worse.
I know.
I know Gran Canaria well. I don't know Barbados that well, but...
There are quicker ways of getting there, for sure.
Absolutely. And what was the planning time for doing that?
So September 16, I decided that it would be a good idea, and then set about trying to raise the money to do it. Learning
so about
to
a 2-year period?
Yeah, so it was about 18 months.
Right. And you raised?
So I've raised £110,000 so far for King's College Hospital.
Wow.
Then I had to raise the money, which was probably about 50 or 60 grand for the event itself, trip itself.
Right, okay. And how did you do that fundraising?
So for the project itself and the boat, I did women only funding. And so I approached high net worths, I approached girls' schools, I approached random people who met me in the public toilets and were like, I want to be part of that. And I was like, great, lovely.
Okay.
And that was the 60 grand and a little bit of sponsorship for some companies, put some logos on my boat, which was minimal, but enough to kind of
get you over the line.
Get me over the line. And then the £110,000, I've had a fundraiser event, but basically that's just come in from what I've done and that sort of stuff.
So people will look at that, world record, and they'll be, wow, that is absolutely incredible. What they won't understand is the kind of period leading up to that.
Yeah,
do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Actually, so in 2009, I nearly died of an illness called Cushings Disease, which is a pretty nasty hormone-related illness where there's a tumour on your pituitary gland which pumps out a hormone called cortisol, and it affects every single...
That's the stress hormone?
Yeah, exactly. And not because I'm stressed, it's just kind of like a tumour would grow. Not cancer, but as a result of that, every single cell in your body is affected, from your brain to your muscles to your bones to your skin. Like literally it was everything. Memory loss, insomnia, psychosis, diabetes, muscle wasting to the point I couldn't get up the stairs, osteoporosis, skin thinning, hairy, spotty, podgy, bruising.
I mean, with that list, most people wouldn't decide then to go and row the Atlantic.
Yeah, so that was 2009, and I then was actually a teacher at the time, so I used to be a secondary science teacher, so I went back to teaching, and then it was after about 18 months that I kind of realised that life is short, and I'm on borrowed time, got to go and do something which I actually enjoy, or I'm hoping that I will enjoy, because I didn't actually know what it was that I was going to do. And then I ended up in Africa, then I learned to paddleboard, and I wanted to bring paddleboarding to everybody in the UK, so I set up a charity which doesn't exist anymore, but I think the process of setting it up and stuff teaches everyone, it's all a learning curve, and a paddleboarding business here in London. And then I had this great idea to row the Atlantic in September.
Right.
And then I got ill again, and then it came back.
Right, I
midway through my training.
Right.
Yeah. not ideal, but actually it was good for the fundraising, it was good for the PR, if we can
in the
say
way that it gave you something to...
Yeah, it was like the story was,
wow.
The illness was in 2009, and there was a gap between the original illness and the rose, so yes, there was a great connection then. I was raising money for Kings, then why not yet? But then suddenly, in the middle of my training, unbeknown to me, 8 years later, this thing recurs. And so all my social media people and everything were like watching this unfold. It went from the thing, it's like, I think I'm ill again. I've just been to the doctor. The blood tests don't look great. What's the MRI scan showing? Okay, now I'm going to hospital to have the operation. Now I'm out of it. And now I'm back training again. So that whole kind of thing was unfurling in front of everyone's eyes, including mine, during my training and campaign to row the Atlantic. And 6 months later, I get in a boat. And then 8 months later, after brain surgery, I get a world record.
I mean, it's just, I don't know what to say. It's absolutely bonkers.
I know. You couldn't write it if you tried.
Yeah, we're going to dig into that quite heavily in the next section. But just before that, because our audience is... made up of teachers. Just give us a quick background on, how you got into teaching, how long you were there for, your experiences, just to whistle stop.
Okay, so when I was at school, at A-levels, I spent a lot of time teaching my mates, the subjects I was doing. I did maths, biology and chemistry. I kind of understood it, and when my friends didn't, then I would teach them. Same thing happened at university. I did molecular biology and found it not easy, but it was very interesting. I got it and understood it, so I spent quite a lot of time helping my mates and teaching them. So when it came to doing my dissertation, I did nothing related to my degree. I actually designed a website for students. I don't know if it exists anymore, but it was for students who were deciding on degrees related around different science areas of science, because I think when it comes to biology, when you come to university, biology is like a small subject. You've got physiology, you've got pharmacology, you've got molecular biology, you've got genetics, you've got immunology, microbiology. So there's so many different areas. So I set up a website to help students understand that. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was like, well, I suppose I've taught all my friends and colleagues as I've gone through. I really like teaching. I love that kind of feeling of imparting knowledge. Love the holidays. Yes, I mean, who doesn't?
That's good for you for saying it.
Yeah. I mean, that was a massive draw. It meant I could go travelling and do things that I loved. And went to Exeter to become a teacher, did my teacher training at Exeter. Ended up in Dorset at a good rated state school after about 7 interviews, different schools, no one wanted me. And then, I loved the first term of newness and exciting and challenging. And then I just, didn't quite feel it. So I applied to be a doctor, to do medicine. Didn't get that, and then I applied twice. I applied after I was ill, but then then I decided to change schools because I thought maybe the school was the issue. Got ill literally in the summer holidays was when they diagnosed me. Luckily, the school I was going to kept my job open.
Wow.
Went to that school, which was a private school and very much focused around outdoor education and sport. It wasn't necessarily very academic, private boarding school. But again, after I'd been ill, and the first term was really exciting because I was getting better, and it was a new school and there was all this stuff. And then the same kind of feeling came back, and it's like, I just don't know about this. And it's only now that I realise what that is, and it's that kind of, you're in walls, you're confined to so many rules and regulations and bells, and your weekend is when you want your weekend, is when the weekend has to be, and your Sunday is ruined, and your Friday you're knackered, and your half term is normally spent with a cough and a sore throat because it's
so it's very much sort of you started and the enthusiasm kind of dropped off.
Yeah, but every time I started a new school, it kind of it grew again because it was new and exciting, but then the same kind of feeling. It was just so frustrating as well. I just don't know if I agree with the education system.
Wow, right. Well, that's a
Full stop.
That's a big statement. So I think we need to get into that. And as we talked about just before we started, I think this is a really interesting one because you have had how many years experience teaching?
About 7 years on and off.
7 years on and off. So, making statements like that with your background as well makes for a really interesting interview because, it's not like you're talking about things from a position of, I don't know,
politician
or an authority. Is that a thing? But you have actually got quite a lot to bring to this. So we're going to go on to on our first question, which is, what were you like at school?
I was probably a little bit cheeky and probably one of those slightly annoying kids that would have their work finished and then would be a bit disruptive.
Right.
The teacher couldn't tell me off because I had it all done.
Right.
And then it's like, well, why are you messing around? Well, I've finished, haven't I? Why would I not annoy everyone else in the class? I never really got properly told off, but I was always a little bit on a fine line of...
You knew how to push the boundaries. But I guess teachers, generally get on with children like that.
Yeah.
As long as you get your work
the results
done.
And that was what kind of... and sometimes I push it a bit too far, and sometimes it, was...
Oh, that's a personality. That's how you work out your personality, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and did you find that you were challenged in school? Did you sort of look forward to school?
I absolutely loved it. I loved going to school.
That's primary and secondary.
Yeah,
you both?
I never had a. Everyone tries to blag a day off occasionally when you were kids. I remember sticking my thermometer on the light bulb, but generally I loved it. I went to 3 secondary schools just because I wanted change. All of them had different things which I loved and didn't like.
So change is a recurring thing.
Yeah, I get very bored very quickly.
Yeah.
And I actually think that was really good because it made me make new relationships. I had to form them quickly. I had to understand who I was and be sort of I suppose, find my character that I was going to stick with to then make the new and to fit in quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think that sort of idea of change is something that we'll explore a little bit later as well. Second question, what is the point of school?
We were joking earlier, so the parents go to school, go to work. Yes, education.
Well, in the industrial model, that is true, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's what do you do? Your parents went off to the mines or whatever, and it gave your mum time at those days probably to, sort out the home and get ready, and you were out the house. But, obviously we need to be educated, and it makes sense for us to have that information imparted in some kind of way. It's obviously easier to do it in a very structured way in a classroom with a whole lot of people, and everyone gets exactly the same information given to them, one might say.
Maybe.
However, it might not be necessarily right.
But what do you think is the point? What do we want to achieve from a child going through primary and secondary? What do we want that child to achieve?
This is the unfortunate thing. We want them to achieve grades, don't we? I think. We want them to achieve knowledge. We want them to.
What do you think that they should achieve by the end of school?
Well, I would probably not have a school that was like the one that we have. There's something about the British the other day that we're all about achieving and we're all about making money, and you must have good grades so you can get the best job so you can make the most money. And I'm totally not motivated by money. So for me, that's not the right thing. I'd say we need to achieve to understand who we are and what our place is in the world and in society. And I don't know whether learning maths, English, physics, etc. is the way to do it, but at the same time everybody needs to have that opportunity. So
do people need a basic level of those things?
Yeah, I think there needs to be an understanding, especially today's society is the way today's society is, so you can't help the fact that you have to have structure and you have to have rules and you have to get up in the morning and go and do stuff. So it definitely gives kids you need to be able to communicate with people, and school is a very good place for that relationship building and things not necessarily always going to plan and having to be told what to do and follow through with that. So there's a certain amount of, I guess, life which you can compare school to outside. I always think of schools as in my head when I have this vision of school, I feel like it's like this, and then you kind of step out of that box into this thing which is slightly bigger and fluffier. But I think...
And a lot more flexible.
And a lot more flexible, whereas school is so not flexible. And I think sometimes kids are a bit well, it's like being in the army, it's very much institutionalised when you come out. The grown men are a bit I don't really know,
I think I felt that after university in some ways. You come out and you kind of step into nothing.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because my half-brother's just at the point now where he graduated in the summer.
Yeah.
And to some extent, I look at him and think, wow, that's me. That was what I was. And, he's kind of, working in a bar at the moment, but, really clever lad, and he's got a good degree and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, wow, is he in that position where he just is looking for somebody to
and you've
give
been
him
directed,
that answer?
haven't you? All through your life, up until 23, 22, whatever it is, you've been directed, and you've had your hand held, and you've been told what time you had to be where, and like what you've got to learn. And then suddenly it's like, boo, open the doors, see you later. It's like you're literally in, your ocean swimming and going, where is the right door for me to now go down? What am I supposed to do? And why those skills? Why are we not given more flexibility and independence and like that kind of feeling at the school level? I mean, I know some schools do try and, encourage sixth formers to be more independent, but it's still within quite strict confinements.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it is very much about data, so if they step outside of that, then if that presents a risk to the data, then that's not a step that they're going to want them to take.
Far.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to your three things that you wish were taught in school. I'm going to mix up the order slightly just because of the way the conversation's gone. And the first thing I'm going to talk about we're going to explore is one of the things that you chose, which is relevant or applied use of subjects. And I think the reason why I want to go with that one first is because we're talking about how people do stuff in school, and then as soon as they're out of school and in the real world, they don't necessarily understand. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about that.
I don't know. I feel that. So I loved school. I found it easy. Working out the area of a triangle, absolutely fine. I used to just love getting a tick on my book. That was as much as it went. I've never used that in my life. But there are, I think, such a huge percentage of kids where that system is useless and doesn't work. Why are we not teaching set 4 and set 5 kids, maybe even set 3, even some set 2 and set 1, but I think they probably will find their way in due course, about like the value of money, about budgeting, about tax, about, the economy, and that the actual application of maths and usefulness in today's society. I mean, what a waste of hours.
I would agree with that entirely, because I think we know a couple of people who didn't know what a mortgage was until their late 20s.
Yeah.
I didn't know how it worked.
I don't know how it works, and I'm 37.
But just as in, that's something that people should probably be able to understand quite rigorously, in the idea of interest and
exactly,
how you borrow money,
different mortgages, and what, like, someone suddenly said to me, let's say I've suddenly got given 30 grand, which is a lovely deposit. I still can't get a mortgage because I haven't got a stable income. Like, no one told me that until I started to think about it. Someone said, oh, you can't get a house if you haven't got a stable income. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
And so why is that sort of thing not taught? Kids at the age of 16 think that, like I was saying, 200 quid, if you work down the factory or you're a build, whatever, that 200 quid, let's say, in a manual job is a lot of money, which it is a lot of money to a 16-year-old, but it's not a lot of money when you suddenly got 3 kids, a wife.
Well, even one kid.
One kid, and you've got to pay some bills, and then and that's not. And yes, maybe even if they did understand that, they would still end up in the same place. But at least you've given them that understanding of that education, rather than the education of algebra.
So well, exactly. So in the
right.
So say like with a subject like maths, for example, you would say that like financial literacy, for example, it should come way before algebra or trigonometry or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean,
how young would you go?
I mean, I think, how quickly do you know where a kid's going in its education? You get the odd child who kind of slips, and the odd child who suddenly like booms halfway through their education. But I would say I was pretty standard in the same place across my education. So I think that it's quite easy to sort of filter at 14, 12, 14, end of key stage 3 maybe.
I mean, I would go younger. I think. I do. I think a lot of the time, we know one group or one sort of social enterprise that did a lot of stuff with business and getting kids to set up businesses, and then suddenly they understand. They are, rather than those questions in textbooks, which has, like, Peter wants to go and buy 3 cakes or whatever. Yeah. It's like, well, how about Peter has like his own cake shop, and let's make him pay rent on it. let's let him work out payroll and things like that. Those things can be done really, really early. And the earlier we do it, the more that, people can get up to speed. So by the time they are maybe 14, 15, 16, if they want to go on and do further maths and all the rest of it, then they can they can get
exactly. I did Young Enterprise when I was in the sixth form, and that was really good.
Is that young though? I mean,
no,
sixth form, young. 16, no, 18?
That was a school which is, privileged enough to have those facilities and that time, and for teachers to give that, which not every school has that. Probably half of the people that were doing it were going to go into business anyway, but it needs to be for everyone. It needs to be the person who's going to be a builder, but actually could be a bit more than a builder and could have their own building company, or wants to be self-employed builder, or wants to be employed. So at least they understand the difference between being self-employed and being employed, and all the other bits and pieces that come with it. I just cannot believe that it's not for everyone, that it's not done for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has sort of struck me since like working in a business, for example, but still being a teacher at the same time, is just the difference between academic and practical, and just how heavily we focus on academic. And actually, there are so many kids in our classrooms who, might have a little bit of academic, but they're never going to be inspired to go down that academic route unless there's a practical aspect. And you'll often find that, I remember particularly in my secondary school, like some of the most enterprising kids in that school were not academic in the slightest, but they were making money hand over fist in the playground. And they were
dodgy
always
dealing.
minted. And they just had so many coins on them all the time. They just shake their jackets and things like that. And they're doing well, but they're doing well in spite of what happened in school rather than.
And I think then you come to the science. English, I'm not so sure because I'm not really Englishy, but you come to the science side of things, and there's so much like the environment, huge kind of issues that, it was only 2 days ago, there was a programme about the planet and plastics.
Drowning in plastic.
Drowning in plastic. And I'd say 80% of people, 90% of people had no idea that even more, had no idea that even existed. Like, why is that sort of thing not being taught? And our impact on the environment, all the things that I'm like passionate about relative to that should be number one. That is the most important thing. Not about, I know bright coloured flames are really exciting, but that's probably, I keep that one in just because it's fun. But there's a lot of stuff that you learn. Lime quarrying. I'm like, really? Like,
is that part of the
that's
science?
Part of is it chemistry, the limestone cycle. Really? Like, that is the only bit that is relevant in that whole bit of the limestone cycle is the impact of like the lorries and on the environment. But you can make it a lot more interesting than a dirty, dusty lorry that's going in and out of a limestone quarry.
Of course. Well, I think there's a lot of things that happen in school, like healthy schools or eco schools and all these kind of things, which are approached on an academic level, but the kids aren't actually seeing in practice on a daily basis in their own schools.
No, exactly.
And so how do you teach them something which then you just pay no attention to, or the school pays no attention to in any way, shape or form?
Yeah, exactly. You get this little star that goes on your sort of school's website credential, and then you go in there and... Or
in the reception, a nice plaque.
And you're still kind of wondering how that is implemented within education, within it all on a day-to-day basis. And I'm not blaming the school and the teachers, because there's just so much pressure on getting A grades or B grades or whatever the school's level is, SATs in primaries, exactly, and making sure that every child matters, and making sure that this school meal is provided for free for that. I mean, there are so many things that a school has to. It just gets more and more that every single kid in that classroom, when there's 30 of them, is coming out with those 3 objectives, or like at least one objective. And that they're all learning in their way that they should be learning, kinesthetic or audio, whatever it is. Like, that poor teacher, how are you supposed to teach 30 kids for 5 lessons a day, 5 times a week, for 32 weeks a year? Is it 32 or 37? Go on, 42. 42,
like
40,
that,
for that many weeks a year. It's absolutely ridiculous. There is no way that those children, not the kids, not the teachers' fault at all, but those children are getting what they should be learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we could probably go on like that forever, couldn't we?
Let's
so
move on.
Probably best move on. The second one we've got here, the second thing you wish was taught in school more is outside education.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, it connects everything. It connects the the relevant learning.
That we talked about before.
And the thing we're going to talk about in a minute, which is I think you're mindful and kind of happiness. But I think also it helps you develop as a person much more. It encourages you to take risks. It encourages you to fall over and hurt yourself and fail and get back up again. So resilience.
Yeah.
It teaches you about what's around you. When you're tired and wet and soggy, you really kind of, you learn things about yourself and other people much
a lot
better,
quicker than you would.
A lot quicker. There's also, that's where we came from. That's where we should be. When you're out in the green, you only have to go to an outdoor activity centre where they see kids who are from PRU, PRU units or whatever. And the amount of naughty boys or girls that connect with the animals or the challenge or the water and the kayaking or whatever, and it's like the success rate is just unbelievable. That is where we're from, outside. That is what our body is kind of needing and nurturing. I don't think we know half of the story behind plants and what the effect of those are on us. But I know that when I go for a run in the city, it hurts a lot more than if I go for a run in a woods. Just there's something about being outdoors which is it lets you relax mentally. You haven't got this kind of noise that is going on. You're having to think outside the box, outside your concrete walls, because it's a bit different.
So there is a lot of there's a big movement with the forest schools at the moment, and that is huge. And one of the things that I think is interesting about this is you talk about the risk and the resilience. Now, would you have chosen this topic when you were a science teacher before you did like this rowing and all the rest of it? Would you have still chosen it then?
Yeah, because I loved it. I did. So I did a cadet leadership. I was in cadet force when I was like 15. I did a leadership thing in Canada for 6 weeks. And it was amazing. I just loved being outdoors and kind of the benefits of that. I mean, probably when I was 16, I didn't realise the benefits of it, but I kind of can see how great it was then. And I did my Duke of Edinburgh, which I just loved, and it was, again, great. And it's kind of always been that way. And that's why the school I moved from one to the other was because that school had more outdoor education, which I feel that kids are better in that outdoor environment. They behave better. You can see them learning more.
And what percentage of kids do you think are really suffering from the fact that they have to stay inside the four walls, and they can't get out their seat? There must be quite.
Yeah, I think I would say that the more intelligent you are, the happier you are confined within those walls generally. But there are obviously still some very intelligent people who cannot be in those side walls. It's difficult to know what the parents are offering at home.
And when you talk about intelligence, sort of like academic intelligence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You find
because
it
you're
easier
getting
to focus
success, I suppose.
you're succeeding. But you always get the kid who should be in set 1, but they're actually in set 4 because they just can't be bothered,
And they're just bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know what's happening at home. Those parents, maybe they go for a walk at the weekends, maybe they do stuff outdoors with their kids. It's very difficult to know. But I think it's with these kids who literally go from, their home, which might be a nice 2 up, 2 down, or it might be a high-rise building, or it might be whatever that house is. They're going from that to a bus stop or a car or whatever it is, and then to school, more concrete. Let's go back. Let's keep doing that for a lot. Yeah. That's not healthy for anybody.
No.
I don't think you're not learning in that process.
No, of course.
The minute we get outside, I think huge amount of kids. I think adults struggle as well. The amount of corporate people who now love their away days. Out doing team building.
Well, the link between mental health and physical activity as well.
Exactly, and mental health and physical activity outdoors in the green of what we got left, or when I used to take people paddleboarding, it was unbelievable seeing the difference in people when they arrived in the car park where my paddleboards were to when I left them.
What kind of stern faces?
Yeah, exactly. All the sort of oh God, it's such a stressful day. It's been so this and it's that. By the end of it, they've forgotten that even existed 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago. So
just being able to unplug the monkey mind and take a bit of a break. Yeah, I mean, I think that would do a lot of children very, 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 very good, wouldn't it? Okay. Let's just briefly touch on the physical aspect of that as well? Because one of the things that I struggle with at the moment is because I used to be a PE specialist as well. So I looked after the PE in a couple of schools that I worked in. And the amount of time that children actually get to move is just so little.
It's not very much, is it?
No. And I remember my primary school when we had this huge field and we used to play football all day long and, we'd be playing tick and all the rest of it. And I look at the difference in a lot of schools that I've worked in and it's just not the same.
Yeah, I don't know where it's come from, whether it's the kids' lifestyle and the kids are a bit more lazy about it, whether it's being cut in the budgets of schools and therefore we need another math lesson because we actually need to get grades and therefore we'll take out the PE. Or I've never been at that level where I know where that's come from. But yeah, I think it must have changed. You're saying it's changed. And it is physical education. It's like healthy wise essential, but also, like we say, for the mental side of things, also really important. But I just always remember girls girls going, oh, I've got my period, I can't do it, or oh, I'm feeling a bit ill, like they obviously don't want to do it. But I don't know, it's got to be something for everyone, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose when you're prescribing what somebody needs to do, then how much buy-in do you actually get from that person?
Yeah.
That's the problem of the boxes and the
and if they're not used to it at home, I suppose also it's like if your parents aren't doing it and your weekend consists of staying indoors and watching telly or whatever, then when it comes to doing sport, you're not gonna. I mean, there's a massive drive now, isn't there, for women in sport, girls in sport?
Yeah. Is it the
looking hot and sweaty?
Movement?
Yeah.
Yeah, this girl
can.
Yeah.
They're rather more interested in looking pretty and whatever than hot and sweaty and strong, which is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that needs to change in a big way, doesn't it? Okay, so we've done relevant and applied use of subjects, we've done outside education, and then the last one we've got here is mindfulness stroke happiness stroke yoga. So there's a lot of strokes going on in there.
I know, I didn't really know how to write it. I didn't know what it was.
I think I wrote that for you actually.
Yeah, something
it's
similar.
It's not your fault. But what I'm going to start with is happiness.
Yeah.
So you actually think happiness should be taught in schools?
I don't think I'd call it happiness, maybe, but it's more about like kids understanding who they are and giving that opportunity to understand and to figure it out. And like, what genuinely works in life to make people happy? Because let's have 8 of the happiest people in front of you. So what makes you happy, and like, how do you think you've got there? Oh well, I've got my ways of thinking about it, but that is not even ever touched on. The inner person as a child, self-development is not like, it doesn't exist. I think the mindfulness is all part of it, and yoga is just like one of those things. Or I mean, it could be paddleboarding. It's very difficult, but I know that some schools that do yoga every morning, and the kids love it. And if that was something that happened from the age of 4, by the time you get to 16, it's a completely normal thing. It's just like, well, that's what we do every morning, isn't it?
I did that with an international class I had, and at the start, the first couple of weeks, they just didn't want to do it, and then after 2 or 3 weeks, they needed it. They actually needed it because they actively wanted to be calmed down. And if we didn't do it at the end, it was a real downer for them. Yeah. Which was great to see, or not the downer, but the fact that they wanted to do it.
They wanted to do it. Yeah. And I think I think the outdoor stuff kind of hits on the self-development side of things. But yeah, there's no room for a child to become what they want to become and be happy with that and figure out how that's going to work in the outside world. Like if you consider your place, you consider that the world is going to school and it's like this and this, but that doesn't fit you. And then I feel like that's every day is going to be a battle for you about like, this doesn't work. I've got the luxury of going, oh, do you know what, teaching's not for me. I'm going to move here, I'm going to move there. But kids don't have that luxury. And it's a real, like, it beats you down. It's like got to that. There's just nothing there for them. And
sometimes maybe mindfulness can give them that kind of perspective where they appreciate the things that they can get out of school, perhaps, and then focus on a different goal, but use school to actually get there. Yeah. Would you teach meditation in schools?
I teach meditation. I don't know how we would do it. I think it would have to be something. I think there would be an external. It would need to be a
Or just encourage them to do
definitely
15 minutes in the morning, 15 at lunch,
Yeah.
15 at the end of the day.
Yeah, just even if you, it's so difficult, but I could just thinking of 15-year-old boys all like giggling and, when they've got to be quiet at lunchtime. But I really think if this is something that if they're taught it at 4 and then they're taught it at 5 and they're taught it at 6, it is just, it's like a bell, it's just ingrained, and this is something that you just do and you...
I agree with that 100%. I think one of the best analogies I've ever had is brushing your teeth. You never think, I'm just, every now and again you might not bother to brush your teeth, but generally people have a 100% success rate of brushing their teeth.
Or putting the seatbelt on.
Exactly. And so if you can ingrain that into, I think that's true. I think, primary school should absolutely have it as part of the practice, whether it's actual mindfulness, meditation sessions, whether it's yoga sessions, breathing sessions or whatever.
Yeah.
So that by the time that they are, because I think habits are formed, well, I can't remember the stats on it, but if you can do it by the age of like 8, 9 and you do it without thinking, then you're off and running.
Yeah. I also think that with the change of the strong woman and the metro man, that this also needs to be addressed as well. The boys need to be more encouraged to be in touch with their emotional side. Doesn't mean they have to like cry every day, but
I cry at Meet Joe Black. That's my one film that will make me cry every single time.
Yeah, it's a tearjerker. Yeah. But I think that needs to be encouraged as well, and the place for people in society, and just accepting other people as well, and understanding that this is a girl. Just imagine putting a young boy and a young girl in a room who'd never really get on in a room together, and just sort of making them talk. You could have a mediator maybe who would be there, but just forcing or encouraging that kind of dialogue between people who you might never really talk to in normal life, and understanding that people are different, and therefore it's okay for you to be different, because that is how life is, and that's how we work.
And that's how you achieve your own personal happiness, by being who you are,
and being happy to be who you are. And when you can accept that other people are who they are and they're different, then you can accept yourself.
Oh, that was so well put.
Thanks.
Well done.
I just came up with that right
now. So, just to finish us off, tell us about what you're working on at the moment. I know that you've got a really important
very exciting
after this.
Yeah. So I am just off my book launch in a minute, but my next project, I really wanted to make the most of my world record and sort of the profile that I have hopefully created a little bit of. The environment's very important. I want to keep doing things with purpose, because I think that's really important, and my passions, because it won't work if I'm not passionate. I don't love it, so I'm going to cycle the coast of the UK. Not really a cyclist. I mean, I've got a bike, but I haven't got
Doesn't
the
that
gear.
make you a cyclist?
I haven't got lycra, and I haven't got clippy-on shoes and stuff. But
non-lycra cyclist.
Yeah, I've got a helmet and a bike. So I'm going to cycle the coast of the UK, which is about sort of 6,500, 7,000 kilometres, and every evening after my cycle or end of the day, we're going to do a beach clean with a school, community, parents, that sort of thing within the local area.
Fantastic.
Hopefully we will already connect with that school and get them to be looking at solutions, because I think it's about solutions, not necessarily the problem. So in English and art and all the different kind of subjects that they do, sort of focusing on that topic, coming onto the beach, seeing the problem, being aware of it, talking to them about what they think and etc., and how they can make change within, hopefully, their home, their school, and the corporates who hopefully are going to sponsor the thing will have their employees come down and cycle with me, so they can take that learning back into home. And then inland, the idea is that people are going to follow the project, be inspired by it, and do their own little litter picking and changing behaviours.
And how can schools get in touch with you if they want to be involved in that?
So Kiko Matthews, if you Google.
We can put that stuff on the screen.
My website, there's a form there. When I publish on all my social medias as Kiko Matthews, Kick Plastic is the name of the project. So that's also on social media. And in due course, we'll be putting the beaches in the areas. So really only looking at this year for a school in that particular area that we can kind of connect with. I'd love to connect with every school in the country that's interested.
Well, I think we can help you with that.
Yeah, can you?
Because we've got our own single-use or sort of anti-single-use plastic campaign going on.
Oh, brilliant!
And we have hundreds and thousands of schools or classrooms at least, who are getting involved in that. So I think we'll try and do a hookup between Team Tap and
Team Tap and Kick Plastic.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well,
Exciting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for coming in. And
Thanks
good
for
luck
having
with
me.
the book launch later.
And life. Yeah, great. Thank you.
So thanks for joining us in the Secret Staff meeting. We'd love to hear what you think about these issues. So you can tweet us at LitFilmFest or search for the Secret Staff meeting on Facebook.